Hey guys, it's Lane here, the HobbiesofaMan. Once again, and today we're doing another manga review. Today we're looking at a manga that's kind of interesting because it doesn't have any words whatsoever, and that would be GON by Masashi Tanaka. This is published by Paradox Press. It looks like it's a standalone book, but it's actually not. There's a few of these by Paradox Press. I don't know how many. I know that there were 6 from Kodansha, but I don't know how many of these there were from Paradox Press. I know there's at least 3. There might have been up to 5. And maybe more. It's also very thin, and the Kodansha ones were about the normal size that you would expect from a manga volume, so it's kind of unclear. The demographic for this is all ages. I think everyone would be able to enjoy this, but maybe not everyone is interested in something like this, right? Depending on your age, depending on your interest. If you don't like dinosaurs or nature, you might not like this, right? The genre is fiction. There's a certain kind of appreciation for nature in this, but it is not necessarily a historical fiction or a fantasy fiction or, you know, anything like that. It's just like, it's nature, and there's one character that doesn't fit in, that's like a fantasy character, which is GON the dinosaur. And because of his existence, the characters or the animals in nature act differently, right? And so whatever genre that is, right? Magical realism, maybe something like that. But it is a fiction story overall. It does not have an adaptation. I think it'd be a really fun set of shorts that Japan should definitely publish and then maybe scatter into the world through YouTube or something like that. I think it'd be really, really nice. Kind of classic, very similar to something like the Ice Age, you know, Scrat the Squirrel shorts that they had right at the beginning of the movie. It's basically the same concept as that. So I think this would be really fun as like a single anime, like a 1-episode anime or something like that, or just a bunch of shorts. But I don't know if that's going to happen at all, because I think that at this point, GON is something that is relatively well known in the States, but has no real hype to it, right? Which is why they're not published anymore. You have to go find these old books, right? So it doesn't have an adaptation, but it'd be nice if it did. And the rating for this book, which only has 3 stories and has no words whatsoever, is a 5 out of 5. I really loved it. I thought it was really, really enjoyable. The premise is that GON is a little living dinosaur. Somehow, it's kind of unclear, and it's not really important that you know why. But he exists, and he travels across the world in order to go find himself in different natural habitats. And when he gets there, he interacts with the animals there, and he gets up to shenanigans, and it's really fun. It's really, really enjoyable to read. So, yeah, this book by Paradox Press opens up with a foreword by the editor, I guess. Let's see if I can tell you his name. It's Andy Helfer. I'm not sure if he's the editor for Paradox Press or just the editor of this book. The cover also has some information about Masashi Tanaka, which is pretty cool. I appreciate it. Basically just tells you a little bit about where he's from, where he was born, where he worked, and then how he got into comic books, right? And then there's this really fun opening page there where we see, what is that? A bunch of penguins and GON kind of in the water, which is funny. The foreword just kind of explains where the character comes from, what GON is, and a little bit of an explanation about why the art style looks a little bit different from each story, right? The first story is GON eats and sleeps. This is the original interaction, or the first time that we see GON out in the world. And then we have these cute little, like, you know, explanations about some of the storytelling that we see here and there throughout the book, right? And this is the first page, GON just chilling kind of in somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. We see a river full of salmon, which are beautifully rendered, and we see some bears hunting. One bear is hunting and then is attacked by a larger bear who makes him move, and then this larger bear starts hunting in the same area. And then later, as the bear is about to get ready to eat, GON the dinosaur shows up, and he messes with the bear. The bear initially tries to attack him, and GON manages to beat him up pretty easily, pretty simply, just by not caring. And then he eats the bear's food. And he eats all of the salmon, and then later he decides that the bear will make a wonderful bed, and so he sleeps on top of the bear, and the bear can't do anything about it because GON is just that much better than him, right? And it was a really funny story. You know, the bear gets a little bit of a comeuppance. He gets karma immediately, bad karma, because he initially threatens another bear, and then GON shows up and bullies him in return, right? The second story is GON Goes Flying, which is a story of Gon chilling with some eagles in a mountain nest and wishing that he could fly. He doesn't seem to understand that he can't fly, but it doesn't make a difference because he grew up with these eagles, or at least these eagles grew up with him, protecting them and helping them and making sure that their mom would be able to feed them and stuff, and protecting them from evil lynxes that want to kill them, or bobcats, I guess is the other word for it. And when all of these hawks or eagles are ready to start flying, everyone lines up, including Gon, to go and jump off a cliff. And, well, Gon manages to jump really well, but he doesn't have any feathers, so he can't fly. Then his siblings, the other eagles, decide that they will carry him. And so Gon jumps really high, and initially it's just kind of gliding. And then as he starts losing altitude, his siblings decide to take him. And so they fly with him, and Gon learns to fly, which is really fun and really cute, and I really, really enjoyed this a lot. And then the final story in this book is Gon Glares. And this finds us in Australia, where all of the marsupials have become friends of Gon's. He protects them from the dingo, or the like the wild dogs of Australia, and we see him interact with this small family of dingoes who are trying to hunt. But the thing is that they hunt characters that are friends with Gon, and so Gon will not accept that, and he teaches them how to fight back. He helps a bunch of koalas just airdrop on top of the dingo. Then he helps a kangaroo kick the dingo away, protecting the Joey, the little baby kangaroo. And then he helps some emus trample him, right? And then he fights the dingo with some crocodiles, and eventually everyone gangs up on the dingo overall, and the dingo has to learn a different way. Gon is like, you can't have any of the animals on land, but you can have some of the fish. And he brings it to him, and the dingo and his children decide that they don't want pity. They don't want the food that's given to them by Gon. They will go and do their own hunting, and they go off into the distance, and Gon glares at them as they leave. And so he has protected the local wildlife, right? Which is pretty cool. Then at the end, we see some sketches of what the actual animals would look like in real life. I guess these are done by Tanaka himself, but they're really nice. They're a very different style. These look more like charcoal, whereas the other ones are pencils. And then we have this really funny Hasta la Vista Baby thing from Gon there. And it's not clear if there are going to be any more of these books based on this first book, but through some research on eBay, I did figure out that there are some. But it's kind of unclear how many there are. So if any of you guys know, please let me know down in the comments, because I do want to collect more of them. I got this kind of out of nowhere at a local half-price books. It was $4 or $5, and it's a little bit more than cover price, because the cover price for this was $5.95, but it was worth it. I really enjoyed this book. I loved it. I thought it was great. I love dinosaur stuff. And this isn't really paleo media by any stretch, but it is a fun adventure of a little dinosaur living out in the great, beautiful outdoors of our world. So I really, really liked it. I recommend you guys track down some of these books if you want. You can probably find it online and just read it, digitally somewhere. If you want to collect it physically, and you don't want to track down all of the different books and have to pay a bunch of money for each of them, even though they're probably in pretty shitty condition, there is one option you have. And it's one I don't really recommend because it's pretty expensive, and by the time the book gets to you, it might be damaged anyways. And that is to order the Italian edition. Because these books are, wordless, it doesn't actually matter what language it's translated in, right? So Italy, a few years ago, made these really garish, ugly-looking Gon books. They're massive, oversized hardcovers. There's 3 of them in the set, and they collect all of Gon's stories. And I think the set sells for about $60 US, plus about $20 shipping. So for about $80, you can get all of the Gon stories. However, like I said, by the time it gets shipped to you through Amazon from Italy, it might be pretty severely damaged. And so it might not actually be worth the effort. However, that is basically the only way you can collect the physical edition of Gon. I wish that Kodansha would publish it again, maybe in a deluxe hardcover Maybe they wouldn't be able to do a one and done type thing, but I think that they should at least do it in 2 volumes. If they copied the Italian one, I hope that they don't do any of those really ugly, garish colors. But I really do wish that they would, because I think that this story is really phenomenal, and it's really fun and enjoyable, and it teaches you a lot about storytelling, because there's no words, and yet you understand exactly what GON is doing and why. And that is some top-tier storytelling. And so I think that this should be widely available to everyone, but it's not for whatever reason. So, maybe Kodansha will eventually publish it again, but who knows if they will or not. But still, I recommend you guys go find a copy of this for yourselves, right? So, yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you guys later.